How comfortable are you with the idea that your church has a brand or your church is a brand? In this Word Made Digital tutorial, we're going to be talking about branding and brand recognition for your church. Hello my friends, welcome to Word Made Digital Tutorials. I'm Joanna LaFleur, and this whole series of tutorials is to help you in your church or maybe even your Christian charity with all things communications and the digital world. But have you ever thought about branding, the brand of your church? Well, maybe you might say, well, we have a logo or we have a name or there's a color theme that we have, but we want to talk today about branding as a bigger picture. What does branding really mean? And how can your church use it to help people connect with Jesus? So thank you so much, the Canadian Centre for Christian Charities, for making this tutorial possible, bringing it to you. If you haven't been to cccc.org lately or ever, go check it out, see what's going on over there. They have a ton of resources for you, including videos like this, but in all kinds of other topics that you may not have expertise in. And their membership gets all kinds of access to like a team of people. It's almost like you have extra staff members who are, skilled in HR, or maybe it's conversations around what to do with the CRA and donation receipts, or it's board governance. So maybe you're on a board yourself, or you're someone who's a key leader in the church. Check out cccc.org. For almost 50 years, 4Cs has been helping charities in the Christian space across Canada do what they do best and leaving expertise that you don't have to them. So check out membership today. Okay, first of all, what is branding? Because it's not just your logo or your colors or your fonts. It's much more than that. Your brand is your reputation. It's what other people think about when they hear your name, when they hear the story of your church, when they drive by your building on the street. It's about your reputation, both in your congregation, but also in the community. And get this, the brand is not what you think your reputation is, it's what other people say your reputation is. So branding is not just about logos and fonts and a slick marketing campaign. It's actually about our reputation in the communities in which we serve. I think about the stories like in Acts 17, verse 5 to 8, where we see, you could almost think about this now as like what we would modernly call branding, as a branding exercise, because it says that of the church in Thessalonica, the believers were known to be turning the world upside down, as it says in verse 6. That the followers of Jesus had a reputation. People had an opinion about them. And when they heard about the church in Thessalonica, they knew something about it. They had a brand reputation. Whether that's good, bad, ugly, whether people like it or not, that's kind of up to them. But the brand is not what you say it is, it's what others say about you. So, because a brand is more like a gut reaction or an intuitive sense of what an organization is about, how it makes someone think or feel or believe, what do they think the values of that organization is, I think a great place to start, if you've never done this before as a branding exercise, is do a branding survey. Now, you probably just call it a church survey, but you could get some things in a quick survey, just asking a few questions to get a sense of how do people perceive your brand, or what do people think of as your reputation when they think of the church. So whether you want to offer that out to your local community or just within your own congregation, you can ask questions like, what are 5 things that you think of when you think of our church? 5 words that you think of when you think of our church. If we could change 2 things in our church for the better, what might those things be? That would be another interesting question to ask. Who is it that we serve in the community, and how do we help and make a difference? Or maybe in what way do we even make a difference in the community? Another question you might want to ask is, would you likely recommend this church to someone else? Why or why not? So you can think of a few questions like that to get on in a survey, and it would start to create a picture of how your brand is perceived in the community. Having the data from this survey would be a great step towards the next thing, which is beginning to get some visuals that represent your church language that represents your church, and then a consistency of how you present that. So number 3 is that branding is not just your church logo or your name or your font or your color, but those things make you recognizable. So it's more than that, but you do need to have the logo, the font, the colors in order to have a consistency to your brand as an organization that's putting things out into the world. That's resources and digital content and print pieces. It creates consistency and recognizability. So when we think of something like the Disney font, when I say that, you know, if you ever see something online that is in the Disney font, you know it's the Disney font. Or if you see the swoosh, you know it's Nike. The golden arches, you know it's McDonald's. There are colors and fonts and images that immediately bring us to a brand. Now, of course, churches are never probably going to have that level of recognition in the world. That's not the goal of what we're trying to do. We're not trying to become, a multi-million-dollar conglomerate business making thing. But what we're trying to illustrate with this is that we actually notice brand, whether we think it doesn't matter very much or not. We're always in the process of noticing brand, associating those colors, those shapes, those images with a feeling we have about the reputation that is the brand of an organization. And so we want to make sure that strong brand messaging includes visuals like the fonts, the colors, the logos. Number 2 is the messaging. That is how we talk about what we do, the kind of language we use, and the kind of language we don't use to talk about our ministry, our mission, our vision, our values in the world. And then the third thing about that is consistency. So branding is not just about your logo and fonts, it's about doing those things consistently, connected to the language of the values and ministry missions. Does that make sense? So the last step I'll leave you with today is after you have some visuals, you have your messaging, and you are going to start doing it with consistency. How can you be consistent? One of the ways you can do that is creating a brand kit or a brand guide for others to follow. Anyone in your church, your leadership, your ministry teams, your volunteers who might use your brand and represent it publicly. That can be literally a place where you have a storage folder that's accessed on the cloud, like in Dropbox or something, where people can get the logo files and the font files and the colors and things like that, but also a guidebook. How do we use our logo? How do we not use our logo? How do we use our colors? How do we not? What are the words we in church ministry? I often advise people in consulting work to have a hot or not list. Here's the words we prefer to use. Here's the words we prefer not to use. Sometimes that means we're trying to avoid like Christianese, like that can be confusing to newcomers, or sometimes it's just we prefer to say communion over Eucharist or things like that. So there's lots of nuances that we can create into a guidebook, bringing that consistency right in front of people so it can give guidance and a roadmap to people who are using it. Then you can also compile all that stuff into a thing like Canva. Canva is allowing you for free as a church, canva.com, to create consistent and nice looking graphics where you can upload your fonts, your colors, your logos so that anyone who's using your style guide can copy that right in Canva. They can log in and create the content they need, like a postcard or a social media post or whatever it may be. But the point is, at this stage, if we have decided that we have consistent visuals and consistent language, now we need a place to consistently access it so that we're all agreed upon. We have a common script. All right, that was a very short crash course in branding, but remember, branding is not just what you think about your organization, it's what others say your reputation is. Branding is far more than logos and fonts and colors and things like that. It's about how people experience you. And why does this matter? If it hasn't been clear yet, let me say it as clear as I can. It's because of Jesus. We are representing what I say is not just the good news of Jesus, but the best news in the world. So if we have the best news in the world, we should be the best communicators because we have the most important thing to talk about. We have the most important thing to communicate. And so it is in fact the reputation that precedes us, whether we like it or not. From the early church in Acts until now, people will talk and make decisions about your church for better and for worse. They're going to talk about how you make them feel, what they perceive your reputation to be, what their opinion is of you. We can't control all of that, But what we can do is get an understanding from people and then try to be consistent in what we're trying to represent out into the world through our language and through our visuals, through our actions and through our deeds, through our words. Well, good luck as you do this. God bless you as you do this. If you'd like any more resources like this, we have all kinds of tutorials here in the database. And also the Canadian Centre for Christian Charities is an amazing resource of all kinds of ways that they can support you in things you may not be an expert at as a Christian charity leader in Canada. So go to cccc.org for more and stick around on these tutorials. There's more coming out every single week. See you on the next tutorial.